This is Titan Talk. Hey everyone, today is June 23rd, a couple days after the start of summer, and this is episode 9 of Titan Talk. My name is Kimber, and I'll be breaking down all the latest details about the newest episode of Attack on Titan, so this is going to be filled with some pretty big spoilers this time around. We're going to dive into the plot, character developments, my favorite quote, and we're going to look at all of the new Titan developments that we learned in this last episode. Later, I will go into the news in the Attack on Titan media world that just came out a little while ago, and not really sure I'm gonna have predictions for the next episode, because yeah, this was the season finale. If they do anything next week, it's probably going to be a recap episode. Also, I don't own any of the storylines, characters, or events in the Attack on Titan world, nor do I own any of the rights pertaining to the show. Alright guys, let's do this. So the episode was titled Scream, and it was very obvious why watching this episode. There was a lot of screaming, a lot of orders being yelled out. A couple characters in particular had a lot to say, and my predictions from last week were that Eren was going to confront the Titan that killed his mom, so check, that one was very obvious. I also couldn't really get a good vibe of what else is going to happen, because it had asked a lot of very vague questions, as in, what is the enemy? What is war? Where will they ever find the future they pursue? So I didn't really get a good vibe on what else was going to happen. They did say that Hannes was going to step in and help Eren, which gets an unfortunate check for reasons that we should all be aware of. If not, we'll talk about it later. I also saw that this was going to be the season finale, and I did see a few of you online commenting on last week's Titan Talk with, hey, next week is not going to be the final episode. You guys thought I was lying. Next week is probably going to be a recap episode, if anything. Yeah, I see you guys out there. I respond to some of you, not all of you. But yes, I did see some of you thinking that I was wrong, that I was joking, etc., etc. But this was the season finale, and it was a big one. Let's go through it step by step. So let's go through the plot. First, we have a little flashback at the beginning to before the Titan situation had seriously gotten out of hand. It goes to Eren's mom, and she tells him to be there for Mikasa as much as she is there for them, which is a little bit of foreshadowing. Then it shows her getting eaten by the female Titan that we see, cut back to now, is approaching Eren in this battle. Then they roll credits. So that kind of made sure that we knew, A, that yes, 1000% that is the Titan that ate Eren's mom, and B, as Eren's being taken away, we see the blonde head of Hannes carrying him, and that comes into play later on as well. Then we go to the armored Titan. He is still tossing these other Titans off of him, and they're in the way, they're hitting people, there are other Titans eating scouts, and we go to Ymir, who sees Commander Erwin and blames him in her mind for messing things up for her. But, and this was a little weird, but it makes sense later, she rushes towards him, but doesn't attack him. She attacks a Titan that is near him. A little weird. We'll get to that later in the character analysis. Also, the commander changes his plan to let's find Eren and get out of here. So then we go back to Eren and the female Titan. He is a little paralyzed. He doesn't have his equipment on him. Hannes steps in the way. He gets between Eren and the Titan, and he starts attacking. Chops her hand. At this moment, he realizes that it is the same Titan that ate Eren's mom, and he comments on it. He says that he wants it to suffer. So now he is not just going for the nape of the neck. He is trying to cut what he can. Then we go back to the armored Titan, who's throwing more Titans off of him still. We see some more casualties. We go back to Ymir. She questions which side to be on, seeing as she can't depend on Bert and Ernie to save her now. So before she had questioned, okay, Commander Erwin kind of ruined things for me. Now she's questioning, can I depend on Bert and Ernie? So we don't really know what side she's going to be on. Then we see Hysteria. She comes out, and I want to note that she finally corrected somebody on her name. Connie called called her Krista, and she corrected him, saying, hey, my name's actually Hysteria. I thought that was pretty cool. I waited a long time to see her do that, because they had been calling her Krista over and over and over again. So it was just a matter of time before she would correct somebody. Hysteria then explains to Ymir that she makes her unafraid, that love between them makes her do whatever she needs to do. Then Hysteria goes into Titan killing mode, which was pretty cool. It's pretty rare to see her in that light. But yeah, she got really focused and just started going after him, and it was pretty cool. And we only see that for a second, because then we go back to Eren and Mikasa and the female Titan and Hannes, and he now needs help killing this Titan, because what was he doing? Not going for the nape of the neck. And what is that going to cost him? We'll see. Eren, at this point, he tries to change into Titan form. It looks pretty promising right at the beginning, because we see his hands pretty much sprout back. So he's healed, but he's biting and biting and biting, and honestly, my hand is hurting just thinking about that scene, watching him bite over and over. Ugh. Ugh. But he's biting, and he can't change into a Titan. We don't know why. Maybe he's still just a little too tired. We don't know. But he cannot change. It cuts back to Commander Erwin, and the armored Titan is approaching him. We see Jean get hurt. Armin's trying to help him, and then it goes back to Eren. Eren is still trying. He is trying a bit more than I would probably recommend if I were a medic, but he still can't change. The situation looks very bleak for the scouts. Armin is back up against a tree, kind of waving his sword at a Titan that's approaching him while he's trying to save Jean. Commander Erwin is in kind of a daze because of probably all the blood loss, and he doesn't really have a proper tourniquet. And then Hannes gets snatched. And here is where there is this breaking point. Eren tries and tries and tries again to change into a Titan. He still cannot do it. He says he needs to change into a Titan and save Hannes, or, and I quote, it is all for nothing. But he can't change. And Hannes gets eaten. Guys, Hannes died. They built him up this whole season, and then they take him away at the very end. Eren breaks down at this point. He starts screaming at the ground, which is probably where the title of the episode came from. He's yelling that nothing's changed, that he's still as useless as he ever was. Just yelling. And Mikasa's just standing there watching him do this and just letting him let it out. And then he stops and he sits up. Mikasa says, that's not true. And they make everything slow down while they're doing this, which is good that they do, because otherwise I don't think she would have gotten a word in edgewise. But Mikasa breaks it down for him. She says, Eren, you've always been at my side. Thank you. You've shown me how to live with a purpose. Thank you. She thanks him a whole lot. Both of them are crying. She mentions, you wrapped this scarf around my neck. Thank you. And there's a pause. And then at that moment, Eren gets up and he says, I'll wrap that around you as much as you want. And I think what Mikasa had said had given him the courage to, even though he can't change into a Titan, even though he can't fight because he doesn't have his equipment on him, even though he's not a very powerful fighter, he still tries. The female Titan reached out a hand and he punched it right in the palm. And we hear a loud crack. There's kind of a slightly anticlimactic moment where he's kind of like, yeah, so that really didn't do a whole lot. But then a Titan jumps up and grabs the female Titan. More Titans come in. They all have her in their sights. The Titans are killing the female Titan for him. And just like a Pokemon, Eren has learned Coordinate. Yeah, I mean, it was a very Mary Sue way to reveal his power, but learn the power nonetheless. We then go to the armored Titan who's saying, oh yeah, the Coordinate could have fallen into anybody's hands. But of course, out of everybody in the entire world, it fell into Eren's hands. And that's the person that he did not want it to fall into at all. But then, Mikasa and Eren are making their getaway. Eren then aims his coordinate powers at the armored Titan. And all of the Titans that were on the female Titan get up and move towards the armored one, just like that. And this gives everybody the chance to retreat, except for one notable character. And that was Ymir. She had this moment with Hysteria where she was saying her goodbyes, and then she stays with the armored titan, and she fights with them. And then it shows everybody leaving the battlefield on their horses, and it goes to this really bittersweet scene with Eren and Armin and Mikasa and Hannes. And it was kind of a cool moment. I'll talk about it later, but a little bittersweet, considering he had just passed. Now we go back inside the walls. Ymir, Bert, and Ernie have survived, and they're laying on top of the wall. Ymir says to them that she'll be their souvenir that they'll take back home, so that they aren't going back empty-handed. She says she owes them for waking her from her nightmare because of when they had shown up when they did. If we remember the scene, the campfire and stuff, they were the ones there when Ymir had woken up. And she also says that she wants to return what she took, which we all assume that she's hinting at her powers. But she's looking up at the moon again. Also important. I'll talk about that later. Then there's a voiceover that kind of tells us what happened after that battle. The citizens inside the walls went underground in the underground city until the wall was safe again. They were allowed back up within the week. Now, it had mentioned that the food rations would have only lasted the city a week. And I think that that has something to do with them being allowed up so quickly, is that they didn't want a disaster to occur. They didn't want the citizens to start stealing from each other. They wanted to make sure everybody felt safe and that they weren't going to turn to crime to get what they needed. So was the wall actually 100% sealed off? That's a maybe, because they never said that the wall was actually finished. And that's hinted on later on in the episode too. So then we go to the Trost district. This is where Commander Erwin is healing Levi, and Pixis are in his room with him. And then we see Hanji and Connie arrive, and they want to talk about Ragako. And then they cut away from that to go to Armin, Jean, Mikasa, and Eren. So at this point we see that Jean had survived. We also see that Eren is, of course, filled with regret at what happened. Now Armin's pretty understanding about this. He tries to cheer him up. He says there are no casualties on the way back, and they also pick up on Eren's powers, which to them is just a theory, but to us and to Rainer and the other Titans who are aware of the coordinate power, it is not a theory. Eren actually is the coordinate. So after hearing Armin's side of things, Eren kind of gets this second wind, and he says he A, wants to plug up Wall Maria, hashtag build that wall, and B, wants to make Bert and Ernie pay for what they did. Very understandable. Hashtag build that wall. It's back! It came back! Then we go back to Commander Erwin's room. They fill the commanders in on what happened in Ragako village and what they think happened to the people there. Their theory is that the entire village was turned into Titans. And Levi comes in with, so you're telling me I've spent all this time and energy running around killing people? And Hanji kind of qualifies her theory with, I said we don't have proof yet, but I think this is going to mess him up. I think this is going to make him back out of being a leader in this fight, because he now sees, okay, I'm killing people. This isn't what I want to do. However, this news makes Commander Erwin smile. And Levi asks him why he's smiling at this news, which is supposed to be negative, but he says it's because they're one step closer to figuring out what these Titans are. To him, the ends justify the means. Even at the cost of all the people that they're losing in this battle, he wants to find out what these things are and be done with it once and for all. We can't blame him. Then at the very end, they zoom in on a few of the scouts, Mikasa and Armin, Eren, etc. They zoom in on them, they play this heartfelt music, and the last faces they show here are the Beast Titan and a very ripped blonde man with what appear to be goggles. And the blonde man just says, not yet, eh? And that's the end of season 2. Oh my gosh, that last second though, what? Okay, we gotta break this down even further. So first, let's talk about the slide. The slide showed right after the bittersweet scene with Hannes and Eren and that one. The slide, I know it scrolled through real fast. I have it all written down here. The slide's title was Unyielding Vow. It was very fitting for this episode. And this is what the slide said. It said, through extensive research and accounts of various incidents, it has become clear that the scourge of Titans which have long plagued humanity are of human origin. The colossal Titan which destroyed the wall at Shiganshina, I hope I said that right, district, is a human possessing the ability to transform into a Titan, demonstrated by its intent to breach the wall with the purpose to exterminate humans. Titans are not sent by the heavens to punish us for our sins, but invaders that must be driven back. Thus, we swear, by the blood our brothers and comrades have spilled, waging war against thee, we shall not relent our lands, nor yield the fight. That's a mouthful, guys. But essentially, it shows that the scouts, etc., they are breaking away from the thought that they are victims of their own fates and they are instead fighters of these invaders. And I think that is extremely important. They aren't laying there taking this punishment anymore. They are standing up and saying, we do not deserve this. We did not do anything to deserve this. These are not some kind of way to punish us. This needs to be stopped. This has to be stopped, and this is up to us to stop. And I think all of that is very important going forward. And also, the unyielding vow was shown right after that bittersweet scene with Hannes, and I think that putting those two together was very fitting. These Titans are not some sort of outside force punishing them. They are to be exterminated, and I think this unyielding vow shows that they, next season, will be filled with this vigor to get rid of the Titans. So the slide was actually pretty cool this time. I liked it. Just the first time I watched the episode, I couldn't really read it, so the second time I had to pause and type pause, type some more to write it all down. But the slide was very cool. I'm glad I read the whole thing. Now, my favorite quote this episode was one of the last quotes in it, and it's from Commander Erwin, and it's after he knows what happened at Ragako, he's in it, etc., etc. All he says is, "This wall hiding the truth will fall." I thought this quote was very uplifting. It was a rarely positive moment in the face of these Titans, and it encompassed this season, as in we learned a lot about these Titans and their origins. Season 1 was more about how to fight them, but season 2 was about, okay, so Titans aren't just these things, like they actually have people inside of them. We learn a little bit about where they come from. And even though we did learn a lot this season, it was definitely not enough. Like, I still have a million different questions about these things. And also, I think his determination is to be admired. He lost his arm, and he is still 1000% in this fight. His determination, definitely something to be admired. So there are a couple characters I want to talk about from this episode. A lot of characters did a lot of things, but these are the ones that I want to talk about. So yeah, if you want to talk about other people, you can at me on Twitter. So first I want to talk about Ymir. It was very obvious from her wishy-washy ways that she's definitely only in this fight for herself at this point. She cares about Hysteria very much, I think. And it did look like she was going to side with Hysteria and the scouts, but at the last minute, she stays with the Armored Titan and she fights by his side. It was so weird. And we find out that it's kind of a sacrifice to them. So A, they don't go home empty-handed, but this is also a benefit to her because now she's giving back what she had taken, which I don't know how she had taken this, but I think she also wants to be outside of the walls. She has referred to the inside of the walls as hell, and that yearning to be free, I think, is reflected in the moon. Her symbolism of freedom are the stars in the sky, the moon at night. And then this was first shown when she had turned into a human again, and then it's also shown when she's on top of the wall with Bert and Ernie after the fight, and she is choosing to sacrifice herself. I think her free choice, her free will, is her freedom. That is how she sees her freedom. She's had this glee about her both times that she looked up at the sky. I think she finds happiness in her freedom, and when she's with the scout regiment, etc., being told what to do, no wonder she's kind of mean. She doesn't feel free. She feels trapped, and she doesn't feel comfortable like that. She doesn't like that. So now I want to talk about Eren, and holy crap, Eren has a superpower. It's not just the Armored Titan or the Colossal Titan that have powers. Eren has one too, and it's a way better power. Also, Mikasa, I think he sees this, but she is incredibly important to him, and she has helped him in so many ways. His reference to the scarf, I believe, was his way of saying thanks to her for all of that. And again, very Mary Sue of discovering the power, you know, wanting it to happen, and then it happens right then and there. But now I see why he is so important to everyone on all sides of the war. He had been referred to as the coordinate before, but this is the moment we see that confirmed. And now everybody wants him on their side. He's important. Now he just needs to learn how to use his powers. And I think he wants to do that. He wants to learn how to hone it in and really laser focus his powers. powers. I think that's going to be cool to see him get better at it. And even though, hey, it worked, he didn't mean for it to work, but it did. But I think he wants to use that power with a purpose in the future. So I also want to talk about Commander Erwin. He is a commander who, even though he sometimes looks blind to the consequences of his orders, he knows when to retreat. I thought that showed him as a leader. The other scouts think that he just kind of goes into everything head first, but there's a reason that he is commander. He knows when to retreat, and that is what he had shown in this last episode. It's admirable, but he also wants to know the truth behind the Titans more than his desire to live. Yeah, he's super determined to figure that out, and those are the people that they need to figure this out. They don't want people who kind of want to know the truth. They want people who want to give their lives for the truth, and that is what they have in this commander. I don't know how great of a fighter he'll be with one arm, especially since it's his right arm that was taken away, but I assume he'll still be a force to reckon with on the battlefield, because even though he was bleeding out and he had freshly lost his right arm, he still helped to save Eren. He was still able to maneuver around effectively and to use his weapon effectively with his left hand. I noticed that he was right-handed, so his right arm being gone, he's gonna have to train a bit, but I think he'll be okay. And then also Hannes, rest in peace. Yeah, I think they built him up this season on purpose just to make his death one to not forget. It felt a little forced in the one episode where Mikasa and Armin are debating on whether or not to save Eren from the forest of giant trees, and then he kind of just comes in with, yeah, I'll help you too. It felt a little forced, but I see why they did it. Am I mad that they did it? I'm mad that he's dead. He was a good fighter. So yeah, the answer to that is yes. I am mad. They took him away. Just as we were really getting to know him and see his attachment to Eren in this season. Now he's gone. But I think Eren will avenge his death. Was it enough to kill the female Titan? Yeah. But I think the memory of Hannes and the memory of the other people he's lost will help him push forward. So, sad that he's gone, but they've got to move on, They can't stop because one person died. Anyway, now I want to talk about some of the developments that came about during this episode about Titans. One of them was, hey, there's a thing such as coordinate powers, and now we know what those are. The way the writer had framed this was that the powers kind of fell into Eren's hands, and Eren was obviously unaware that he had these powers until this episode. But Bert and Ernie seemed to be fully aware that he may or may not have had these powers. They seemed a little unsure themselves as well, but obviously this episode made them sure, and I'm not really sure how powers could just fall into someone's hands, but that slide a couple episodes back said, we don't know the source of Titan powers, so I don't know the source of this Titan power. Just saying. And then the Unyielding vow, I think, made something very apparent that they see Titans as invaders. The quote from the Unyielding vow that I'm referring to is, Titans are not sent by the heavens to punish us for our sins, but invaders that must be driven back. That is important, I think. Just an important mentality to have for them, really. Is just, hey, these guys need to be defeated and destroyed at all costs. It is not our fault that they're here, but they are here, and we've got to stop them. I thought that was cool that was made apparent in this episode. Okay, so the next episode, big ol' frowny face. What does this mean for Titan Talk? Well, if there is a recap chapter, I do still want to do an episode of Titan Talk about it, just because it'll be a good refresher. I have some ideas as to how I'll keep this show going until the next new episode of Attack on Titan. So, while I do want to take a break for maybe a couple weeks, maybe a month, I don't know, this show will definitely be back way before the next episode of Attack on Titan. So stay tuned to Helluva, stay tuned to my social media channels to know when this will come back. And I'll probably also mention this next week if there is a recap episode that I will do a Titan Talk episode on. There may be one episode next week, there may not, but I will definitely definitely be back before the news that was confirmed, season 3 of Attack on Titan. There's going to be a season 3, and we don't have to wait a whole decade for it. I know that's an exaggeration, but it felt like a decade. Season 3 is coming out next year. I did not see how many episodes there are going to be in there, but I assume it's going to be about as long as this season. So, until then, guys, my name is Kimber. For a hell of a large selection of content, visit itsahellofaworld.com or follow them on their social media channels. You can also follow me personally on my Twitter. That's KimberBoBimber. That's spelled KIMBERBOBIMBER. And that, my friends, has been episode 9 of Titan Talk. Thanks for listening and attack on!